Mick, we're going to talk about the national championship game, but first I got to tell you about it. Today's show is presented by Five Star Fans. The thrill, the passion, the pride. Being a fan is a wild ride. Ohio State fans, it's been a wild ride through the college football playoff and on the recruiting trail. With Five Star Fans, you can be in the action like never before. Go to 5-starfans.com right now. That's 5-starfans. Spell out the number 5-starfans.com right now. Sign up and you can give $5. That's right, $5 to your favorite Ohio State player. It's probably Caleb Downs or Jeremiah Smith. $5 to your favorite Ohio State player right now at 5-starfans.com right now. You're probably all Jack Sawyer fans right now after what happened in the Cotton Bowl. Go to 5-starfans.com right now. You can give $5 to your favorite Buckeyes player when you sign up. Go to 5-starfans.com right now. Mick Walker on the other side of your screen. It is Spencer Holbrook. When you see Mick on your screen, you know what it means. We're going to talk recruiting. We're going to talk what this championship run means for recruiting. Mick, the buzz is palpable. You can feel it. You can hear it. It's in our ears. It can't get out. It is ringing. Ohio State's in the national championship game. What, just overall, we're not specific players. What is the vibe right now on the recruiting trail now that this team has made it through 3 playoff games and into the national championship game?
Very high, obviously. I mean, we mentioned Jack Sawyer. I think I had at least 3 or 4 different defensive linemen when they were reacting to the aftermath of the game mentioned Jack Sawyer's scoop and score and just kind of what it meant. Captain Jack, as many have started to dub him. That was also brought up by a few recruits. So it's not just the way that they've made it to it's not just going to the national championship. It's the way they've made it with some of the first couple blowout wins. I mean, then you have these goal line stands with Caleb Downs making plays, Jack Sawyer making plays. Those are direct moments you can sell to guys and say, hey, this is where we need you forward to be able to do something like this. And we think you're the guy. So being able to have those pitches while also winning the games, it's just doubling whatever Ohio State can do on the recruiting trail. And let's not forget, they just signed a top 5 class again last cycle with 3 different 5-star prospects in it. One of which was Quincy Porter, who was balling in the Navy All-American Bowl on Saturday after Ohio State picked up the win in Texas as well on Friday.
It's interesting to me that, I think last year one of the talking points about the Michigan National Championship win was that I think a lot of people didn't think the Wolverines did enough to capitalize on that because of the coaching change with Jim Harbaugh, because of, going to Sharon Moore and losing all the talent that they did off of that championship team. Ohio State's trying to capitalize off of this very clearly. Not only are the Buckeyes big spenders, which everybody knows they spent so much money on this roster to retain it mostly, but to add a few pieces, they're going to be big spenders on the recruiting trail always. They're never going to fall behind in that regard. But I think that's one of the keys here is if you make it this far, and I think Notre Dame, you could probably say the same thing about them too. If you're making it this far, you better take advantage of it on the trail. Because if you're taking advantage of it on the trail, it's going to maximize your opportunity to get back to this moment. And we all know championships are won on signing day, but championship games are made on signing day too. Getting here is massive. Notre Dame's roster is very homegrown, other than the quarterback, a couple different pieces on that offense. But Ohio State's roster is also very homegrown. I think showing guys that, we'll go out and get 3 or 4 transfer portal pieces to complement these guys, but showing them that these big time plays by Emeka Ibuka and Carnell Tate and Jack Sawyer and Jordan Hancock, the game he had against Texas, that's homegrown talent. And I think maximizing this run is paramount for Ohio State. And I think so far they're doing a pretty good job of that. Now, if they win the title, I think it even skyrockets.
Yeah, and you mentioned all those skill position guys. Jack Sawyer obviously in the trenches, but that's where it really stands out. Obviously, Ohio State had Seth McLaughlin and Josh Simmons that were transfers in on the offensive line, but you're talking about 5 homegrown players on the offensive line now, 4 on the defensive line, all these guys. And it had a big impact on offensive line recruiting, especially because I think going into this playoff run, going past the Michigan game, it was kind of, Justin Fry, is he going to be around for another year? Can you do this all over again? It seems to be that he's likely going to be coming back with the way this offensive line performed. And I'm not going to name the recruit, but there was one recruit I was just exchanging a few messages with on Sunday. And I was like, hey, does the way this offensive line is performed in the playoff and the fact that Justin Fry is likely coming back, does it change things for you? And he just said yes. I think there was concerns from several guys along the offensive line whether Fry would be gone. The fact that he's likely coming back and the way they've looked with all this turnover at the offensive line position has played a great deal. It's benefited him a great deal. And then also, like you mentioned, keeping momentum going. Chris Henry Jr., the top commit in the 26th class, 5-star plus wide receiver, two schools working the absolute hardest to flip them. Oregon, Texas, both of them checked off the block, could not get past Ohio State to get further in the playoff. And that's going to be a message that gets sent directly from Brian Hartline to Chris Henry Jr. Not that he needs even more of a pitch, but the any kind of pitch that Oregon or Texas had now falling by the wayside because you can't get past the Buckeyes in the playoff.
Yeah, and this is not, this is an Ohio State team that, looked like it was limping into the playoff because it was limping into the playoff. Now, like you said, 5 homegrown guys on this offensive line. Really 6, if we're being honest, because the injuries to the 2 have made 3 step in. You've got Donovan Jackson at left tackle, signed out of high school. Austin Sarabelt and Luke Montgomery at left guard, both of them signed out of high school. Carson Hinsman at center, signed out of high school. Tegra Shabola and, again, Austin Sarabelt, they're at right guard, signed out of high school. Josh Fryer, underrated prospect who has blossomed into a starter for a national championship game participant at Ohio State. We can't call him a national championship winner just yet, and maybe we won't be able to. We'll see what happens against Notre Dame. But, like, all 5 of those guys now are developed. And this is year 3 for Justin Frye. Like, he has developed them. It's not been like he inherited this. Like, all of those guys have he did inherit, Fryer, who signed with Ohio State. He retained Carson Hinsman, who maybe, wavered a little bit when Greg Studrawa was fired. Donovan Jackson was already at Ohio State. Josh Fryer was already at Ohio State. But the development in the last 3 years is something that he can point to. That's, I think, huge. And then, on the flip side, in the trenches, we doubted Larry Johnson a lot this year, myself included. There's mea culpa to be told if they win this national championship of, like, I didn't know if Larry still had the juice. And, like, he's very clearly getting the most out of these guys right now, all of which he has developed. JT Tuimoloau playing really well on a bum ankle in the second half. Jack Sawyer, obviously, but the defensive tackles have really turned it on here in the last few games. And, Edric Houston seems to be coming on very quickly. The development there, I think, is something that these recruits are going to latch onto. And it's not just the skill positions that we always talk about, corner with Tim Walton and the safeties and Jordan Hancock being a hybrid. And, the linebackers have taken a massive step. The receivers are always good, obviously. The running backs, Ohio State has had good running backs since, the Truman administration. But, like, it's in the trenches now, too, on this 3-game run. And I think that's so noteworthy. Because look in the class of 2026 for Ohio, like, these offensive linemen, in-state offensive linemen, have got to be paying attention to what's going on here and what Justin Frye is starting to build in this room, because it looks like it might be finally turning a corner.
Yeah, I think, and especially if you look at the recruiting reaction pieces we put out after both the past 2 wins, Oregon and Texas, you look on the same guys that consistently get back in every time. Sam Greer's always in there, the 4-star out of Akron Hoban. Adam Guthrie, the 4-star out of Miami Trace, who's also considering Texas. He's always in there. Max Riley's always in there. Darius Gray, a 4-star from Virginia, who did a great job at camp this summer, played well in the Navy All-American Bowl on Saturday as well. He's always in there. These offensive linemen really have connected with Justin Frye. So to see the success they've had on the field, I think it just it kind of just reaffirms what they already thought about him. And so that's going to be a huge win. And then also, if we talk about the homegrown guys or the guys that are staying, Kenyatta Jackson coming in and getting a batted down pass there on that, I believe, in the first half after JT got hurt, or Caden McDonald coming in, waiting his turn and being a big factor on these goal line stands Ohio State's had. Having guys that are 2 to 3 years in the program coming in, being developed, and still having an impact, that's as much of a recruiting pitch as guys like Jack Sawyer going in the first round, because we're going to play our guys. We're going to develop them, and they're going to stay here. Because there's some of these schools Ohio State has played that if you're not on the field in 2 years, you're not going to be in the program because they're going to go on to somewhere else. Ohio State will keep guys, develop them, and they'll become role players and key players like Kenyatta Jackson, Caden McDonald on both sides of the trenches, because you also have Tegra Shabola, who's continued to develop. Carson Hinsman continued to develop as well.
Mick, like you said, you've published now the last couple of weeks recruit reactions to these wins. Are there any specific recruits that you've been able to connect with about these wins that kind of jump out to you like, whoa, like what they're saying is pretty crazy given where we're at in their recruitments?
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of give it away now because it's 2 weeks. I mean, Sincere Johnson came out right away, said Ohio State is #1 school, the 4-star out of Cleveland, Glenville. I don't know if that was really ever disputed, but for him to kind of announce that is just something that you kind of perk up about. Chris Henry Jr., he's a guy that's kind of hit or miss. I've known Chris for a while, so I am able to get on the phone a good bit, but he's still hit or miss when it comes to contact. He's always getting back to me after these games, which is notable. If you're willing to talk, you're willing to also be interested, and everything seems to be in a good spot. It's when guys don't talk to Ohio State media or don't talk to media that you probably get worried. And Chris always talks. I think Aiden Harris continues to be impressed, the 4-star, and Matthews Weddington down in North Carolina. He's a guy that has said Ohio State's his leader, and it doesn't seem like that's changing. A lot of these guys not only are picking Ohio State to win the national championship, but hoping for him, pulling for him. So there's Aiden Harris, the in-state offensive lineman, a couple of these other guys, Chris Henry Jr., all staying in great contact and just continuing to watch, react. I think that's the most important thing, because some of these guys could easily go watch other games or go do something else. They all want to watch. They all want to tune in and also want to talk about what they thought.
Yeah, I like the quote from Tyler Atkinson, the 5-star linebacker from the state of Georgia, like super athletic, twitched up guy. Talking about how both of the schools that were on the field were in his top schools, and Ohio State's defense was clutch. Like, that's a big quote for him to give. I love hearing, Elbert Hill, who is an in-state guy, but is one that's going to, weigh his options. It's not guaranteed that he's going to be at Ohio State. I think that's huge. Obviously, like a guy like Savion Hyder, who is, really high on Michigan and watched Michigan beat Ohio State, and now can see Ohio State kind of turn the ship around and get to the national championship game. Like, for him to kind of recognize that and be willing to talk about it, even though he's got a fantastic relationship with Tony Alford up there in Ann Arbor, like, I think that's huge. Continuing to hear, like you said, from Chris Henry, just trying to highlight a few of these guys. Like, I think that's really big. And then all these offensive linemen, obviously, like we've been talking about, that's big. And I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but it is like these national championship runs. Listen, I'll say it this way. Ohio State hosting guys for the Michigan game and Ohio State losing doesn't really have that big of an effect on recruiting. Like, wins and losses in recruiting only affect you if you're going like 7-5, 8-4, compared to like when you're supposed to be 12-0. Like, Florida State saw an impact from going 1-11 this year in recruiting. But like, an individual win or loss is not going to make or break you in a recruitment when you host a guy. With that being said, multiple wins in the college football playoff and proving that you can win 3 playoff games in 3 weeks, basically, it is a massive deal. And again, individual wins and losses don't really affect recruitments. Multiple wins in high leverage situations that get you to the national championship absolutely do. And I think that's the biggest difference here is like, yeah, you'll hear some post-visit glow from a guy who visited for the Nebraska game, even though Ohio State kind of sucked in that game and barely won. But it's not the same as, hey, what do you think about Ohio State going to the national championship game and being a double-digit or an 8.5-point favorite as of Monday morning in the national championship game? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think we'll go 2 things here. The one reaction that didn't make it in, Felix Ojo, 4-star offensive tackle who looked great at Ohio State this summer from Mansfield, Lake Ridge, Texas. He texted me late last night, so we'll just go ahead and say it was a great game. Love seeing Ohio State close off the game against Texas. So obviously that's one of, or if not the biggest, the guys that Ohio State's trying to pull out of Texas next cycle. So him tuning in, him watching Ohio State beat Texas, who is his other top school, I'd assume, is a big win for the Buckeyes. But the other thing is the dead period closes. The recruiting dead period it's a whole dead period in February. So there's this coming weekend after the national championship, and then the February 1st is another Saturday where schools can host guys. And at first, I don't know if Ohio State was originally planning when the Tennessee game's going on. I don't know if Ohio State was planning to do much in January, kind of save it for later this spring. But if Ohio State does pull this off a week from today on Monday night, I'd fully expect whether it's February 1st or January 25th for Ohio State to get some of these in-state guys down, whether it's getting a picture with the trophy, whether it's seeing the coaches. You're going to see Ohio State try and turn this real quickly with a lot of these guys, because you already see Jacob Witherspoon. You beat Oregon, he commits a day later. You're going to see some of these guys like Sam Greer or something. They're going to try and push. Sam continues to tell me, hey, we'll look at things when it comes to the summer. But I think there's going to be some ratcheting up of sorts to try and get these guys in the fold if Ohio State can seal the deal a week from today and get these guys on campus shortly after that.
Yeah, I mean, the class is not like filling up quickly. I will say there are 4 commits right now. If they pull off a win against Notre Dame, win 4 games in 5 weeks, and win the national championship, I think you'll see this thing skyrocket, and people will be, beating down the door to commit in this class and get to be a part of it. Because like some of these offensive linemen, for example, like that thing could fill up quickly, and all of a sudden you're looking at a couple in-state guys like, hey, if you don't commit right now, just not saying that this is going to happen, but like Felix Ojo is already in the boat. Darius Gray is already in the boat. If you don't get in, like, you're going to be out. And you're going to be out of a national championship winner as an in-state guy who always dreamed of playing at Ohio State. Like, yeah, you can take your time, but taking your time might cost you a spot. Like, it might become that, because this is a program that already recruits at a top 5 level that's on the cusp of winning a national championship. If they hoist that trophy, like, this thing could skyrocket. And you know what? I could say the same thing for Notre Dame, because they're recruiting at a really high level under Marcus Freeman. If they win a championship and prove that they can compete at the highest level against the big boys, which they haven't done really since the 90s, and they hoist a national championship trophy, like, that thing's going to skyrocket as well. And it's going to be more than just former NFL players' kids that are committing there, because it seems like they're always hauling those guys in, but it's going to be like the top national names. It's like for both of these programs, like, they might not be full right now, but win a national championship and you'll watch this thing fill up really, really quickly. And as fun as this December and January have been for Ohio State, if they win a national championship and have a parade and all, and the confetti and the whole like and everything like that, like, this 2026 recruiting class could be crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's always going to be a couple cycles. The March, April time period with the spring practices, that's all when a lot of guys will jump in. You'll see probably a handful of guys commit during that time. That's just how the cycle goes. And then there's June and July. So, like, while there's only 4 commits, they'll still get up to there, I imagine, 20 plus, because after we saw Ohio State sign, was it 26 or 27 commits? I think it was 26. I imagine Ohio State will shoot for that number again in the 2026 class. So we're on a perfect track. But like you said, if you win this national title, things can even pick up even more. There might be a guy or two you might have not thought you were originally going to get. You might be able to flip under the boat. The other interesting thing is Notre Dame, who Ohio State has a couple different recruiting targets they're going against with. Notre Dame already was planning for a couple months now to go January 25th for a junior day visit. So if Ohio State is able to get the win over Notre Dame in a week from today, Notre Dame is going to have double-digit guys on campus a few days after losing in a national championship to Ohio State, who Ohio State's also recruiting some of those guys, which will be a fun little recruiting rivalry going on there. So there's a couple different things I'm watching from that angle, and we're gonna have a story out with Mike Singer from Blue and Gold Illustrated about just some of the guys Ohio State and Notre Dame are recruiting against right now.
Big news, folks. Before we get out of here, Mick Walker will be on site in Atlanta with Tim May, the 41-year vet, and I for the national championship game. We're going to head down later this week. I know Mick's excited to get down there, take some photos, and maybe even go see a couple Georgia, Atlanta area recruits. Make it a little double dip, national title game, go recruiting visits, in the same trip. We'll see how everything shakes out, but he will be in the building in Mercedes-Benz Stadium next Monday night. The whole Lettermen Row crew heading down there for the game. It's the national title game. It's Ohio State and Notre Dame. We're going to have full coverage of it every step of the way at lettermenrow.com. We're 1 week from the national championship game between Ohio State and Notre Dame. That's Mick Walker. I'm just Spencer Holbrook, bringing some recruiting tidbits. You got anything else, Mick?
Hey, Spencer, if somebody wanted to join Lettermen Row for that 1 week for this national title game lead up, how much would it cost them? How much?
It's funny you asked that, Mick. I think there's 7 days right now between now and the national championship game. And I think for 7 days, the full coverage of the national championship game, it's just $1. $1 for 7 days of Lettermen Row, $1 for 7 days of Lettermen Row. It gets you access to the Lettermen Lounge. It gets you access to lettermenrow.com, all of my content, Mick's content, Alex Gleitman's content, Mick and Tim May, the 41-year vets content. Oh, by the way, you can read everything over at Blue and Gold Illustrated. Can't comment on their message board, but you can read everything they do with that $1 for 7 days as well to lettermenrow.com. Come hang out with us. Join the Lettermen Row community today. It's lettermenrow.com. Coverage of the national championship game between Ohio State and Notre Dame. Mick and I will be there. Tim May will be there. It's going to be awesome. Looking forward to a great week. For now, just go to lettermenrow.com. Get all that coverage. This is Mick Walker on the other side of your screen. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com. We'll see you guys in Atlanta later this week for coverage of the national championship game.